This is Live at 5 with Jeremy Thompson.
Very good evening. Our top story live at 5, not BA's finest hour. The airline now admits blame for the chaos at Heathrow's new Terminal 5, but says it still doesn't know when things will work properly. The queues were reduced today, but only because 20% of the flights were cancelled, leaving more passengers angry and frustrated. And now BA workers are venting their anger, saying bosses were warned that it simply wouldn't work. Well, Sky's David Stallard has been on point duty down at Terminal 5 for the last couple of days. The latest, Katie, please.
Well, we're now approaching the peak of the evening rush hour here, Jeremy, and staff with their fingers firmly crossed behind their backs say things are running smoothly and that this system is getting back on track, albeit with 20% of flights today now cancelled. But what should have been the day after their triumphant grand opening has instead turned into one of abject apology. 24 hours late, but finally almost on time. This is how Terminal 5 was supposed to look. The queues in the queueless terminal gradually shortening, passengers and their bags arriving on the same day. From the shambles and the chaos of yesterday, slowly came a semblance of order. And with it, a very apologetic Willie Walsh.
Well, we encountered a lot of problems yesterday. We had problems getting staff into the car parks, problems getting staff through into the airside areas. We did have some computer glitches. There were issues with the baggage system. None of these on their own should have created the difficulties that we saw yesterday. But combined, it did lead to the problems we saw.
The terminal was starting to look like it was working, but out of sight, a very different story was unfolding. Even the departure boards didn't show all that was going on. Inquire Airline, it said, not a cancellation in sight. It turned out they meant the same thing.
Well, over 2 days to come from Marrakech to Oslo. Terrible.
I've been in a queue here now for 2.5 hours. Whilst there are lots of people saying they can help, there are 26 desks here, and only 5 people are actually manning those 26 desks. The people at the front of the house cannot make any decisions and refer you back to these 5 people here.
My flight to Berlin got cancelled yesterday, so they told me to fly this morning. No compensation, they didn't even apologize. And this morning I have no luggage, so I went to the electronic check-in, but it didn't work.
Beyond the gleaming facade, the staff screening queues shuffled on. The engineers continued to wrestle with the lifts. The cash machines upstairs in departures refused to part with any cash. Our camera crews weren't allowed behind the scenes, so whatever was happening in baggage reclaim was happening in secret.
The baggage system, although it was working perfectly yesterday, the people whose job it was to operate that system felt, for whatever reason, that they either weren't familiar with the area, they couldn't log on to their computers properly, they didn't feel as though they were sufficiently trained. BA, I think, now are going to have to address the system that the people who work in the baggage area are going to need to feel much more confident.
The staff here aren't allowed to talk to us on camera, but we understand many are feeling pretty fed up, frustrated, disappointed and frankly humiliated. On a website for BA pilots, they wrote that they were totally ashamed of British Airways, that they felt like lions led by donkeys. The majority of people operating the baggage system, they said, had trained on it 4 months ago and they hadn't really seen it since. But perhaps the real story here was the angry people who'd been texted to tell them not to turn up, that their flight had been cancelled, or who'd given up and gone home without their luggage last night. And all this with the terminal working at well under half the capacity it was built for. The plan was to go to full speed next month. That plan, as well as so many of BA's problems here, now apparently under review.
Katie, no doubt people wondering whether there's going to be a weekend of misery ahead. What is the very latest now?
Except that there will be a knock-on from this, that there will be further delays and cancellations over the weekend as they try to catch up with themselves. As it stands, Jeremy, since midnight last night, 36 of the flights that were due to depart here have been cancelled. That's out of a total of 187 that were due to take off. 42 of the inbound flights have been cancelled. That was out of 186. And in total, this could affect as many as 40,000 passengers. That's the total amount that are expected to pass through Terminal 5 each day. But we should point out that that is half of the capacity they were hoping to run through here. They plan to operate this terminal in peak periods with 82,000 passengers. So there clearly is a very long way to go here before they can manage that.
And as you were suggesting in your report, some pretty scathing criticism from some of BA's own staff about the people leading them.
Yeah, people haven't been allowed to talk to us here in the terminal officially on camera, but behind the scenes people really are frustrated, they're humiliated, and on their professional forums, on for instance the BA Pilots Union's website, they've been scathing in their criticism of BA. They describe themselves as being lions led by donkeys. They say they feel totally ashamed and they simply feel let down. Now they say also that these problems should have been seen coming. This is a terminal that has been more than 20 years rather in the planning, 6 years in the building, 6 months in the testing, but people are telling us that those tests, the passenger reruns with volunteer flights to try to test how this system would work, were chaotic, and that at best they were tested with 2,000 passengers. So they say they were underprepared, and what should have been a day of triumph ended yesterday in a day really of complete chaos and shambles.
Thank you, Katie. Well, the grand opening of T5 involved years of planning, months of rehearsal. So why at the very point of its most important day of all did things break down so badly? Sky's Paul Harris investigates whether the damage is terminal.
We are determined to change the way customers experience the terminal building, experience the check-in, and it is going to make a huge difference. I'm really looking forward to it.
That was then. This is now. So why did it all go wrong? For a new era in air travel, read the same old misery. But were the on-the-day baggage, parking and security problems wholly unexpected? Apparently not. Even some BA staff themselves, who argued they hadn't been adequately prepared, took holiday instead of dealing with the chaotic scenes. Some advice then from the man behind the launch of another problematic project, the Millennium Dome.
You pack the airport and you test it, not one, not twice, but 10 or 15 times. Because again, every day there'll be something new that will go wrong. It's not about the rehearsal. It's about getting used to, for operators, dealing with new systems and getting used with, again, expect the unexpected.
So how can it be fixed? Housing the UK's biggest airline, dealing with 82,000 passengers a day and 12,000 bags an hour, some say there were bound to be problems. Problems which are likely to be rectified quickly.
I think probably in 2 weeks' time we'll be looking at a reasonably functioning terminal. However, the damage has been done. British Airways thought that it was going to amaze the world. It's just embarrassed the nation.
But British Airways is just one of the major players in this £4.3 billion launch. BAA is the other. The Spanish-owned airport operator, hugely in debt, faces criticism for its performance. So is the breakup of its monopoly in the southeast, or at least the question of competition, part of the solution.
I also think we need to examine the argument about competition between airports. I think you're now beginning to see travellers really exercise quite a lot of choice. A lot of people now, would rather go to City Airport because although it can be tricky to get to, actually the experience once you're there is so many times better than what you experience at Heathrow.
So have brands been damaged irreparably? After a year that saw security breaches, endless queues and protests against airport expansion, the brands BA and BAA were supposed to be stronger than ever, but far from it.
These guys have known about this for 3 years. They've had 6 months of practice, and they can't even get the plumbing of a toilet right. It doesn't say a lot, not just about British Airways, but it doesn't say a lot about Brand UK.
And with the holiday season fast approaching and Terminal 5 expected to take on Terminal 4's passengers at the end of April, perhaps more troubles lie ahead. Paul Harrison, Sky News.
If you are travelling to or from Terminal 5, you're advised to call British Airways on 0800 727 800, or you could go to their website, ba.com.